Hello and welcome back, everybody, to another Raw Reviews. Today we'll be looking at Game of Thrones Season 3, Episode 6, The Climb. Another fantastic episode, as always. It was beautiful just to watch this whole thing. It was more dialogue-oriented, as to expect, but this dialogue seemed very deep, with some scenes, like especially the climb, the dialogue between Ygritte and Jon Snow was fantastic. All those bits of dialogue were just great. Even Tywin and Lady Orell was awesome as well. Tyrion with Cersei. The list goes on and on. I guess the weakest links here were probably Theon being tortured. With that scene, we don't really get to see an advancement of the plot and story. When I say that, I mean we don't find out information on his torturer, even though we think we do. He pretends he's Lord Karstark's son, which he's not. In the end, you find out he's lying. Or is he lying about lying? We don't really know. So, it'll probably be revealed next episode, and I'm sad to say, Theon's probably going to get killed off next episode. I'm just guessing. Just guessing. He's gonna, after he's done torturing him, he's gonna admit who he is, and then they're gonna kill him off, probably. And that's why it feels like a cop-out a little bit, but we'll see what happens with Theon. Hopefully he won't die. I don't know. But so far, it's pretty high up there that he will die. On a lighter note, we go to the beginning of the episode, which was Beyond the Wall, with Samwell Tully, who was with Gilly and her child. We see that Sam is trying to be, I guess, like a father figure a little bit, but with the help of Gilly, with him singing to Gilly's child, that beautiful song. I forget the lyrics, I'm not a singer, but yeah, it was just very great, and it was a good start to the episode. A lot of reviews out there said, oh, it was slow. The episode, the beginning of it was slow. Well, I mean, you gotta have some pacing, guys. You can't have all sword fights. We can't have all of this shit going on. We gotta, like, take a breather, and that was a nice breather to start the episode. And in the end, we saw crazy shit happening when Jon was climbing the wall. So in all sense, it paid off. And it was nice. And even we got to see that Sam was singing the song that his mother sang to him as a child. And I just want to say to that, like, he is caring. He's a nice person, and we get to see that through here. That he's a kind-hearted, and we also get to see that he still has the Dragonglass dagger, which I wish we would see that in action, because it's such a cool thing that it's used for. But sadly, we haven't seen what it does yet, and hopefully we will soon. From Sam, we'll go to directly to Jon Snow. We saw that he was climbing the wall with Ygritte, but before that, they were talking about whose side is Jon Snow on. And Ygritte knows that he's still a crow at heart, and we know that the wildlings would cast him aside because he's expendable. Anybody is, basically, and that's why Ygritte's saying, I'm your woman now, you know? You treat me great. You know, like, she loves him at heart, but she also says to Jon that she'll kill him if he ever betrays her. It's completely understandable. So, Jon's having conflicted issues. At that moment, I think he really wants to say, I'm sorry, don't trust me, you know, but that will get him killed, you know? So he has to play this game with her. But I think he does love her, you know, but he wants to say that this can't happen, this relationship can't happen with you. But at that time, he loves her. And right as they're climbing up and Jon saves her, I thought Ygritte was going to die from that rope cutting incident that Orell did, the warg. And he did that to save him and Tommen, Giantsbane, from dying, from getting pulled, which is something that a lot of people do in those instances. And it was understandable that he did that. You know, he's a wildling. His first priority is survival, and also to keep the mission going. If they all died, then they would have failed. But Jon's probably going to have a rough time with him later on next episode. But this one, it was just awesome that they made it up on top of the wall, and that whole wall scene with them is just amazing, especially with Littlefinger's dialogue over it. That whole scene was done with plaster, with wind and real snow that they did, with real ice climbing pickaxes, and that's why it made it look really realistic, and it was great that they did that. They used a 50-foot tall plaster wall for that. It's just beautiful. And the whole scene with the green screen background looked awesome. The zooming out, panning, it was just great. We got to see 2 shots. We get to see beyond the wall with Ygritte sees, and then Jon Snow turns her towards the south, and it's just a little bit of a difference because you see green and then you see all white. You know, she's known snow all her life. She hasn't seen green or grass, and to see this was amazing. And if you guys notice, once they got up on top of the wall, we got to see Jojen Reed's hawk that was hovering over them, and that's why Jojen was saying, "I saw Jon Snow." So maybe he was looking at them reach the top of the wall. So now he can tell Bran that, hey, they're safe, instead of saying, hey, I saw Jon Snow. So going from that, we might as well just go into Jojen Reed and Bran. We didn't get to see too much of this, but the dialogue between Osha and the Reed girl was just pretty funny, and it got to see them, like, how they're trying to get along, how they're playing little cat fight with each other because they're trying to see who's the better hunter. One can skin rabbits really good, and one can hunt really good. And Osha is just a great actress. I love her actress. It's awesome, and got to see her try to put that girl in place, even though the girl was stubborn. And then they're just going back and forth, and it was just really good. It was another example of great dialogue until Bran had to break that up. I mean, I could have spent the whole episode just watching them argue with each other. So it's just awesome that they did that. And then they were actually interrupted by Jojen when he was trying to return back from the dream when he saw Jon Snow. So he was probably possessing that eagle, as I said, while seeing them at the end. Moving from that, we'll go to Arya. We got to see more of her than we did with Bran. I want to see more of her. I really do. I want to see her in her torment with losing Gendry 2 times, because she lost him to the Brotherhood, and then the Brotherhood lost him to Melisandre, basically. So all she sees is treachery, you know? Like, these people, she thinks that, well, maybe she didn't think they were honorable, but Gendry certainly did, and that's why he wanted to join them. He's like, all my life, they're Brotherhood, they're really a Brotherhood, and they kind of are, but when the Red Priestess says she needs him, they're going to listen to her. And for that, what reason? We don't know yet. I know, but I'm not going to spoil it for you because that would be terrible and people would be up in arms for it. But all we know is that Melisandre needs him for something, you know? And she says to him even that these people are foot soldiers, but you will bring down kings and put kings on their throne. Is he an apprentice for her? Will he be, like, used as a sorcerer? Does he have, like, the Lord of Light sorcery in him or something? We don't know. And Arya, we also see her practicing with that wooden straw guy. At first I thought, well, why is she missing a lot? But then she's like, hey, I got where they wanted. Tits, balls, and head. That was a great scene between her and the archer guy. I forget his name. It's really unimportant for that guy's name. I think it was 7 Strings. But I don't know. But after that scene, we see that Melisandre is out of her element, almost, when seeing Barristan being resurrected 6 times because of Thoros of Myr. And what is different between Melisandre and Thoros is that Thoros is humble. He says even that I have no power. The Lord of Light is what gives me power. After Melisandre asks him how you did this. And that's what separates him from Melisandre. Melisandre believes in the Lord of Light. They both do. But I think she's less humble than Thoros is. Thoros is a drunk. He's been around poverty. He's helped these guys out and shown them the Lord of the Light, the way of the light, instead of showing King Robert the way of light. which he was originally sent to by Melisandre, when Melisandre tells Thoros that, hey, you were sent on a mission by the council, or I'm going to use council as a term. It's probably from the Free Cities, I'm not sure, but as a council, priests and priestess, to come here and preach the Lord of the Light to King Robert. So maybe they had this whole plan set forth originally that Thoros would come here and spread the Lord of Light so they could take over Westeros. But basically this is Plan B. Melisandre's cleaning up after Thoros of Myre's mess, if you think about it, because now she's, instead of going after King Robert, she's going after the next best thing, which is Stannis Baratheon. And that's Plan B. Originally it was intended for King Robert, but now he's dead, gone, and Thoros screwed up. But, Thoros instead went off, got drunk, but because he's not faithful to the Lord of Light until he resurrected Lord Barristan, as he explains. And I thought that was a pretty cool element, and it gave Thoros a human element, a humble element, and especially when he was talking to Arya about the gold, how they needed both the gold to help people. He knows how to play the game, and he knows how to compromise. So it's like Arya's still childish at the point. She still sees things in black and white, but that's because she's a child, and she'll later come to understand why people do these things. They do. Also, with her and Melisandre, when they talked, was pretty interesting. When Melisandre said to Arya that she saw much darkness in her, and how she saw 3 different sets of eyes, green, brown, and blue, I was thinking maybe she saw in Arya that she experienced a visit with the Faceless Man from Season 2. Maybe that's what I saw, because she saw 3 different sets of eyes. The Faceless Man can change his face. So maybe that's what she meant. Or maybe she meant that Arya would become a Faceless Man herself. Maybe she would be taught in the ways of becoming an assassin, or, because she's great with the bow. She's been taught by Syrio Forel in the first season how to sword fight. She's visited the Faceless Man in second season, and it's just all these coincidences with all these different foreign people is just too much. I think there's much greater goal going on, and I think we'll see very soon that Arya will grow up to be this killer, or darkness in her that Melisandre said. But what that darkness is, I don't know. I'm just making theories right now. I'm not spoiling anything. I'm just giving my theories out, because I am in the same boat you guys are. I've only read the first 3 books. I'm on the 4th one. I'm just starting to read that now, but I I don't know. So we'll see soon. Going from Arya, we'll go to the Riverlands, where we see Jaime Lannister with Brienne, and they're debating whether King Bolton will release them or not. And we find out that King Bolton is actually treating Jaime very well, because basically he's saying, hey Jaime, I'll treat you very nicely. I'll send you to your father if you don't tell him that, if you tell him that it wasn't me who chopped off your hand. It was just one of my subjects who did that. So hopefully, this is nice understanding between us, and just don't try to have your army attack mine after this war's done, after Robb lost the war. Because Lord Bolton knows that Robb is losing. Even Robb knows that he's losing. And so Bolton is making this desperate last attempt to do this. So, it's very betrayal to Robb, and I find it hilarious that Bolton is claiming that Brienne is a traitor for embedding a traitor of Catelyn Stark, when he himself is sending Jaime back to King's Landing. That's hilarious. That's like a pot calling the kettle black, So it's just it's unfair for Brienne. Her in that dress, my God, looked hilarious, because you see her in armor, and she's just so tall and muscular, and you see her in this dress, and it's just so funny to see that. And you can see that Jaime was very surprised by that, and he was trying to insist with Lord Bolton that, hey, no, bring her with me. She's, a good friend. At this point, they become friends. They've gone closer to each other. They know one another. And so I really hope that next episode Jaime rescues her or something. I don't know. I don't want her. I don't want Brienne to die. I really don't. She's a great character. All right, moving from Bolton, we'll go to Robb. Here we see that Robb is trying to get his uncle to pay for his price of, not marrying the Frey woman. So he's getting his uncle to marry the Freys instead, and also giving Harrenhal to the Freys, and he's also gonna have to do a formal apology to the Freys themselves. So he's getting his uncle Edmure to do a marriage with the Freys, and Edmure is like, hey, you know what, this is terrible, but I'll do it for you, I guess, after they talk about the windmill incident. So Edmure agrees willingly at the end. And that whole dialogue scene was interesting, and that whole dialogue scene was very well thought out and played out, strategically. We saw an insight to Robb, how he's thinking right now, is saying, hey, guess what, we're losing, we're all gonna, this whole thing's been pointless if we don't win, and this is the only way we can win this war, is for you to marry one of the Frey girls so we can get their army, so we can take over Castle Rock. And so they agree. Will this work? I hope so. I really do. So hopefully Robb can win over the Freys and they can attack Castle Rock. Maybe that will be the season finale of them attacking Castle Rock. Who knows? So we'll move from the Riverlands to King's Landing, where all the good stuff happened too. Don't get me wrong, a lot of good stuff happened at the Wall, but I really loved the stuff in King's Landing. A lot of good dialogue scenes in there, especially between Tyrion, Cersei. We got to see them united in their own hatred for their father, basically, and saying, hey, maybe if we kill Sansa and Loras, maybe we don't have to marry them. That was a nice writing for Cersei's character. She would say that. And we also got to see that Tyrion, in the end, had to tell Sansa, hey, this is awkward. You have to marry me instead of Loras. It was so awkward because he had to tell her in front of his own girlfriend, Shae, as Shae was standing right next to him. As Shae was standing right next to Sansa. And I find it funny that Tyrion's like, hey, can I talk to you alone? And Shae's like, no, I'm here to stay. I'm going to listen to what you have to say. What is it, by the way, that you have to say? And bam, we get that. It was just awesome. And it was great that we didn't see him directly tell her. We got to see her reaction at the end through Littlefinger's speech. And we got to see her cry, and it was more dramatic, and it was more emotional to see that than hear it, And that was a very smart move. Very smart move. Especially when Littlefinger says that chaos is like a ladder, and if we don't grab onto it, if we just hold on to it, we don't keep on going forward, we'll never get through in life. And that's what Sansa did. She was offered an opportunity by Littlefinger to escape this terrible world. She didn't take it. Littlefinger had it. She didn't take it. The Hound gave it to her. She didn't take it. So many things. So many opportunities. So many missed opportunities for Sansa. And she was holding herself back. She is her own enemy. I don't care that Joffrey's terrible to her. I don't care that the whole world is basically shitting on Sansa. She is her own worst enemy now at this point, because she has lost 2 opportunities. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Okay? And when you let that opportunity with Littlefinger get you out of the city go away, that's just your own fault. And she knows it too. So we'll have to see the repercussions of her actions next time. Maybe Tyrion will smuggle her out. We don't know. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll get fed up with his father and just have her sneak out with Shae and they'll go and run off. Who knows? Highly unlikely, though. We'll go to Lord Tywin with Lady Orella. My God, that was a great scene between 2 power-hungry powerhouses right there. With Lady Orella admitting that Loras is a homosexual, right? Sword swallower, as they say in Westeros. And she has no problem with that. In High Garden, I guess they don't care about that at all, so that's fine. Lord Tywin, on the other hand's reputation is kind of terrible when it comes to his son and his daughter and their affection for one another. And, Lady Orell knows it, that this is terrible. And she takes advantage of that and takes a stab at that as in response to him making fun of Loras, basically. She even brings up the point, Lady Orella brings up the point that Cersei is old. She's been married to Robert for almost 20 years. She's had 4 children, if you include her 4th child that she lost. So she's reaching her point where she's still beautiful, she can still bear children, but she's reaching the point where she won't be able to do that anymore. And Tywin is like, oh, what? Huh? He's not used to being refused before, and Lady Orella is his foil. So it's nice to see these two houses fighting, not with swords, but just with words at one another. And I loved it, the scene where Lady Orella takes Tywin's pen as he's about to write Loras as a Kingsguard, and she snaps the pen in half. And will Loras become a Kingsguard member? We don't know. I guess so. But if that does, then it's terrible for him. He has to stay in this crappy shithole. And it's just, because we even see the dialogue with him and Sansa was fantastic. We got to see Loras as a character rather than see him as Game of Thrones' flagship character for homosexuality. He's a real character, And when I say a flagship character, I mean, the oversaturation of his sex scenes. Most of them are not pointless, but they just throw it at the viewer without offering any explanation, for him as a character, without giving him any personality. And here we get personality out of him, and so that's good. That's really good. And we see through him that he actually does hate this place as much as Sansa does. He says this is a terrible place, isn't it? And sadly, he's going to be chained to this place if he becomes one of the Kingsguard. Oh, I almost forgot. We also see that Cersei tells Tyrion basically that Joffrey was the one trying to kill him, and it's not too surprising because we saw Joffrey execute all of Robert Baratheon's bastard sons in fear of what he heard from his mother and about Jaime. So it goes to show that Joffrey's such an asshole and terrible person in this show. And we even see that he actually physically kills somebody in his own bedroom chambers with the whore Ross, and now her character's dead. It's just terrible, and that Littlefinger actually gave Ross to the king to do that. It was just so sickening and evil. My God, Littlefinger is okay. I have to say that the dialogue between Littlefinger and Varys was the highlight of this show. We finally get to see the powerhouses of the Game of Thrones. These two characters have so much power and control, and we have to remember that Varys was actually originally a council member for the Mad King, so he has so many connections and whisperers, apparently. Who are these whisperers, by the way? Who are these spies? We never get to see these spies of Varys. We only get to hear, oh, my birds told me, or oh, the spiders spin their webs. What does that mean? Does that mean he has some sort of ability where he learns that? Is that magic? So we don't know. And Varys confronting Littlefinger reminded me of the struggle of Batman and Joker from The Dark Knight a little bit. As, the Dark Knight fighting Joker, which is fighting chaos. Littlefinger here is the embodiment of chaos. He embraces chaos as an opportunity, because in chaos you have opportunity. That's why Littlefinger loves to create chaos for everybody. And he'll strike you when you least expect it. Because if you notice that Littlefinger smiles all the time. He's very polite to everybody all the time, but the way he gets to his positions is diabolical. And he even plays the game. He's a powerhouse when it comes to playing the Game of Thrones. Varys is the only one who knows this, basically. He's trying to tell everybody, hey, Littlefinger is out to get you. Beware of him. But since Littlefinger has no army, he doesn't look very threatening at all. But everybody needs to realize is that Littlefinger can destroy you in your sleep. He doesn't need an army. He's got his holes. So, and the whole Chaos is a Ladder speech was just fantastic. And it shows that you get a glance at what makes this character tick. We know his backstory between him and Catelyn Stark and how he fought over her love for her against Ned Stark's brother, who ends up dying from the Mad King later on. And we learn that Littlefinger was cast away after that and was disgraced. And so he worked his way up through that chaos and disgrace and to the position where he is now. He owns Harrenhal, apparently, from the king, and he is going to marry Catelyn Stark's sister. And so he's gaining so much power now. He's going to have an army soon. And nobody really knows this. He owns 2 of the biggest castles ever. And so I think he's even more dangerous than Daenerys' dragons in this. So I'm just telling you, okay? So it will be very interesting to see what happens. I already talked about the flaws about this episode, which was, I don't know, just like I wanted to see more of Arya in this episode, but time constraints, I understand that. However, the torture scene with Theon, like, we know nothing about his character still. That bothers me. I want to know more, you know? I just feel like there's no advancement in the plot there. However, that scene was very brutal and very, like, not great to watch, but it was very intriguing to see how this murderer works, how he ticks. He attacks Theon for no reason, he says. It's pointless. It doesn't have a happy ending. So I still think he's the bastard of Bold. So we'll see what happens. So comment below. Let me know what you think of the episode. Did you like it? Did you hate it? I give this episode a 9.5 overall. That's my score. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll get back to you guys next week. Alright, this has been Rob Summers, signing off.